and white and we're looking good. You'll be in for a fight and we fight pretty good. Getting goals is our job and we get goals good. Looking good, we are Carlisle United.
Hello everyone, you're listening to the Brunton Bugle, the number one place to get a Carlisle United fix in the podcast world. I'm Lee Rooney.
And I'm Mike Booth.
United are through to the second round of the Cup, but in the league, Harrogate's status as a bogey team remains unchanged. We look back on the win over Tranmere and the dramatic midweek draw in North Yorkshire before looking ahead to this weekend's fixture against Walsall at Brunton Park. Yes, I don't know what it is about Harrogate, Mike. We just can't seem to get a result against them, can we?
No, and yeah, it's not a draw that's much to celebrate. You know, albeit been a last-minute equaliser, it's still disappointing.
It's disappointing, but we were second best for most of that game, weren't we? So actually, when you look at it, it's not. People probably say, "Oh, you've been ahead twice, 2 points dropped." Actually, it's more like a point gained because I kind of feel a little bit of Harrogate because they certainly were the better team in that game. But you know, that's the vagaries, isn't it? Sometimes you get those results, don't you? So there you go. Well, let's get straight into it. I've got plenty to cover today. First up, the usual sponsor stuff.
We're very proud to say that once again this season the podcast has been sponsored by the Carlisle United Sports Club London branch. The London branch is open to all Carlisle United fans. They've got members from Cornwall to Dundee and Houston to Singapore and of course every part of London and the South East. They regularly meet up on away trips as well as arranging many social events, sports games and fundraising for the club. They'll be providing us with information for the away games as part of the preview section this season too. You can find out more about the London branch at their website, carlisle.londonbranch.org. Just a reminder also, if you don't already, please do subscribe to the podcast. You can do that on any good podcast app, wherever you get your podcasts, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Pocket Casts, any good podcast app. You just search for the Brunton Bugle, click subscribe, and then every time a new episode comes out, you will get it straight into your inbox. And if you don't already, please do follow us on social media. We're on Twitter at Brunton Bugle, same address on Instagram at Brunton Bugle. If you search for the Brunton Bugle on Facebook and click like, you can follow us there. And we're also on the Be Just On Fear Not Facebook group, which is a fantastic community. Over 3,000 people in there. Would recommend joining it, definitely. We're on the Cumbrians.net message board, and you can find us on email, bruntonbugle@gmail.com.
Okay, Mike, that's all that covered. So let's get into the news section. We'll do the loan watch in a sec. There's only one real bit of news to cover this week, though, isn't there? And this is one that we missed last week because we recorded early in the week. So this was sort of announced, I think it was on Thursday, was it announced, or was it Wednesday? I can't remember which one it was now. But
it's one of the other, yeah.
Yeah. So this is the news that a section of the Paddock was to be closed after the incidents that occurred in the 3-2 defeat against Leyton Orient a couple of weeks ago. This... It's an interesting one, this, isn't it? Because the initial reaction, we were ready to be very angry on this programme, saying, you know, you closed off the big section, it's a disgrace, blah, blah, blah. Friday morning, the club revealed the section that was closed off. Essentially what they said was an area behind the dugout at Brunton Park was going to be closed because of the alleged coin throw. Now, I've heard from someone that apparently they're well on to finding someone who did throw a coin, possibly, so we might hear something about that very soon, but we'll have to wait and see. Now... The idea was they were going to close a section behind both the home and the away dugouts, and the photo they put up on the official website just showed the whole of that section. It didn't show where it was blocked off, and they said, we'll be confirming the final section that's closed off either Friday or Saturday morning. I'm thinking, why don't tell us now? The big failure in all this for me is it's been badly communicated, in my humble opinion. You know, I work in communications, so I've got some experience in this field, and I know it can be difficult sometimes. But for me, they never should have been putting that announcement out without knowing exactly what section was closed off.
I mean, the thing for me would be, and as far as I'm aware, there's nothing that indicates that the alleged coin was thrown from that bit. So, why close that bit?
I think the problem is, the other thing that's come out is obviously quite a lot of fans emailed Nigel Clibbins, quite angry about it. You know, there's some really angry reactions, understandably so. Because one of the big problems is because they put it out and said that they were closing a section, it made out as if they were closing the whole stand. And Sky Sports News had it on their yellow ticket, on the little thing, the updates at the bottom. And it made it out like we were, is BCF 2.0 had been reformed something, and they were closing the whole stand. And as it is, they've only closed up to the first crush barrier. So it's literally like 4 steps.
I do think, though, that is a case of them backing down a little bit after seeing the fan reaction.
It might well be, but the talk I've heard is that was always the intended section, and they just cocked up in not telling it properly. Now, it may well be that it was supposed to be more, but I don't think anyone can deny that it just wasn't handled well at all by the club.
No.
It should have been handled better. It's painted a bad image of the fans, and I think that's part of the reason fans are angry. I think the small section of fans who've lost their space where they normally stand for years and years are not going to be happy. But actually, you're probably going to find most fans are angry because of the way it's portraying the club's fans. And there's a feeling sometimes, and I kind of get this, that the club doesn't do enough to defend our fans sometimes. And yes, there is some elements of bad behaviour occasionally, but it's always quite often that they basically bend over for the FA and make them, do everything possible. And other clubs would back their fans a lot more, I feel. That's the impression I get.
Yeah.
And, whether this has anything to do with the fact that one of our directors has high positions in both the FA and the EFL, I have no idea. He might be wanting to keep them happy, you never know. But that's the impression a lot of fans get. A lot of fans were saying this to me when I was at the last 2 games, were saying, it's typical, it's just John Nixon wanting to keep his mates happy. It might not be, but that's the impression that fans have got now. And that's half the problem.
Exactly.
It's a tough one, isn't it? I do feel that the club do want to avoid getting fined and things like that. Yes, I totally understand that. But at the same time, there's better ways of portraying your fans than what they've done in recent weeks. And it's frustrating. It really is.
I mean, it's absolutely crazy when you think about it that, 3 little rows of a terrace, like a tiny little area, that made Sky Sports News that been closed. That's ridiculous.
I almost think it would have been better if they'd just closed it and not told us beforehand. And when the fans got there to the game, just say, look, decision's been taken to close it off because of what happened at the last game. You probably wouldn't have had anywhere near as an angry reaction than the one we got.
But for me, our fans have been brilliant this season. And there's been 2 very suspect allegations against our fans, one of which been the Hartlepool seat thing as well. And our fans have been brilliant, and I just think I don't like this picture that's been painted of us at all.
We've said with the seat thing, and we've had it. People who were sat nearby have pretty much confirmed this. That was just from the crush from the goals, the surge forward, and that's due to. And you know what? If you had people sat in those seats instead of covering them over, you wouldn't have had that surge forward because they would have not been able to. But because and again, it's down to poor stewarding by letting too many fans get into that area. If they stewarded the area better, then they could have avoided that, but they didn't. So they want to do it on the cheap. That's Hartlepool's choice. And the coin throwing thing, the frustration thing is it is an allegation, but from what I've heard, and we'll have to wait and see if it's true, it looks like they are close to potentially identifying someone who did that, which is frustrating because it does besmirk the fans, doesn't it? Something like that. It's annoying.
It does, but at the same time, if one person chucks a coin, fine them, ban them, that's it. Yeah. Don't tar every single one of our fans as bad people.
You're absolutely right when you say that, Mike. I 100% agree with you on that. And from what we've seen, and a few people have seen the emails that Clibbins has sent back to fans, which is generally it's a cut and paste job. Of course, it is. He's not going to type out an individual email to every single fan. The detail he puts in it is quite interesting, and it does make you think, why wasn't that put out with the initial statement? It was talk of the fact that fans trying to get towards the tunnel when the refs and players are going off, and abuse being shouted at from close range, not particularly nice things, and you know what? Both me and you've called many a manager an effing clown down the years, haven't we? And possibly slightly worse things.
Yeah,
we've tried not to get too personal. Of course, you don't. But it's football. People vent off a bit. There probably is a case of a few, and we know that from speaking to other people, there are a few people who stand down there. You go there for one reason, and that's to give quite personal abuse to the opposite managers, and that isn't good. And Simo's commented on this and whatnot, and that needs to be dealt with. But tell us that when you put the initial statement out. The impression that was given in that initial statement, it was more just down to the coin throw incident, and that's what's got people riled up. Because at the end of the day, chances are the coin was thrown from a lot further away from that. Because if you throw it that close, it's going to be quite easy to identify you, isn't it? So. Yeah. So there you go. It's just a feeling of frustration right now, isn't it? the feeling that the club should have handled it a lot better. And my hope is it's a case of lessons learned. I think that's what we all want, isn't it? We don't want it to drag on too much longer. Definitely.
And, since Simo's came in, I haven't seen much anger aimed at the directors. Mm-hmm. And they kind of undid a lot of goodwill with that one stupid move, really.
Yeah, and I think that they've probably got a little bit out of jail on it as well, because the team plays so well against Tranmere and put in such a good performance that there wasn't really any sort of gripes directed towards them. I was stood in my usual spot a bit further up in the closed section and didn't hear anything shouted at the directors at all during the game, and that's just because the team's doing well. So they're a bit lucky in that sense, but like I said, hopefully they've learned the lesson and we can move on. And the hope is that section will reopen, but the impression I get from some people is that potentially in the future they're going to try and put some sort of permanent barrier there to stop fans getting in there, which will be sad if they think that's the solution. And it could have been handled a lot better. Yeah. Right, let's do a quick loan watch, Mike, before we review the two games. So first up, Max Kilsby. Big win for Max and Annan at the weekend. They moved off the bottom of the Scottish League 2 table because they picked up a 4-1 win at Forfar Athletic. Forfar have actually dropped to the bottom of the table. Up next for the Gallagher, it's a tough tie though. It's a trip to face second place Stirling Albion, so doesn't get much tougher really. But Max as well played a part apparently in the fourth goal. He had a shot that was deflected into the path of the lad who actually scored. So good to see him.
Relegation 6-pointer that one as well, wasn't it for them?
Yeah, real big result against one of the fellow strugglers, and hopefully that can sort of kickstart their season. Lewis Bell, another 2 appearances for him, but my word, not a good week. Is it fair to say for Gretna? 2 home defeats in a row. First up, they lost 3-0 to second place Spartans, and then in midweek they were hammered 6-0 by East Kilbride. I mean, East Kilbride were close to getting promoted to the Scottish League 2, weren't they, I think? Last season, I seem to remember they might have been in the playoffs, possibly to go up. Can't remember exactly, but maybe not. I don't know. Maybe it was the year before. I can't remember. Fairly recently, they've been close to getting into the Scottish League, but yeah, not a great result. And this weekend they're going to travel to Edinburgh to face Hearts under 21s, because of course Hearts, Rangers, and Celtic all play in the Lowland League in their under 21 sides these days. So Rangers under 21s are actually top of the league. I presume they're not allowed to get promoted into the Scottish League. I'm guessing that's what the rules are, but
I'm not sure. I know in Germany they have to be 2 divisions apart, don't they?
I can't remember if it's 2 divisions. It might be 2 divisions, but I remember the rule there was basically you couldn't go any higher than Free League, which is the third tier, which is the first sort of professional tier as you're going up, basically. So interesting to see what happens with that. Another start for the Fish, but not a positive result for Morpeth, unfortunately. They went down to a 2-0 home defeat to Marine. Sam was actually subbed off in the 61st minute in this game, and the score was still 0-0. This weekend, the Highwaymen travelled to Cheshire to face Nantwich Town. And finally, Lewis Boyd, he made his 8th appearance for the Sky Blues at Carlisle City. Unfortunately, it was a 3-2 home defeat against Heaton Stannington. They were actually 2-1 up as well at one point in this game, so not a good result for Carlisle City. This weekend, they travel to Pickering Town. Right, well, that's Lone Watch done, Mike. Let's get into the match reviews. First up, Carlisle United 2, Tranmere Rovers 1. FA Cup victory gets us into the second round where we'll face Walsall away. I mean, God, Walsall away. We didn't actually mention this in the news section, did we? But it's not much of a reward, is it really, I suppose?
No, but it could have been worse, to be honest with you. So.
It's, and I know Walsall fans are going to be listening to this, it's a winnable tie. I'm saying that with my inverted commas there, and that fact that both sides probably look at it as a winnable tie, really, don't they? They think Walsall thinking they're at home, that's all you can ask for, and we're thinking,
which should hopefully make for a good game of football. Yeah,
it should be a tight game, and hopefully with some, because it's probably going to be Saturday 3:00. It's not going to be on TV, or it's not going to be the highlights one that they have on Sundays. So with any luck, they might reduce the prices, might get a decent crowd in maybe, because it certainly helped for our first round game, didn't it? So it's one of these ones. This game, we're going into it, we didn't know about the injuries to Dennis and Stretton. We knew there was potentially a couple of players going to miss out, but when the starting lineup's announced and you find out that your 2 main strikers are injured again, there was a sort of sinking feeling, wasn't there, when you saw that starting lineup and you saw Toby starting. And that's not a slight on Toby. It's more a case of he's nowhere near fit.
We knew he wasn't ready.
No.
And the way that he plays as well, he needs a lot of energy.
Yeah, definitely.
And by all accounts, he came off at about 60 minutes, absolutely shattered.
He could barely walk, never mind run.
Yeah.
He was trying his hardest to chase down the two centre backs, and you could see him waving to the bench to say, "I need to come off soon." And that's when obviously Harris came on. But yeah, so one of the biggest surprises actually was that John Mellish was available. We were convinced all week he wasn't he was suspended, but turns out for 5 bookings, it only counts in the league, whereas if you get sent off, it also counts in cup fixtures as well, I think. Hence why Ryan Edmondson missed this one but was allowed to play against Harrogate. Surprisingly, he was available. Missing out, obviously, Stretton and Dennis. Sho Silva got his shock start. Gibson returned to the starting 11, and Charters and Ellis both kept their starting places as well, and certainly well deserved, wasn't it? Obviously, they've had great performances against Tranmere in the league game, and again, did it in this one, didn't they? They're both really good.
Yeah, exactly. And Charters is a good little ball around for Harris, wasn't it, for our second goal?
It certainly was. You're jumping ahead a little bit there, Mike, aren't you?
Yeah.
So let's talk about the goals then. First up, Gibson's goal. Lovely little through ball from Guy to play Sho Silva in, and this is when he was able to go full pelt for that first half. Gets away from his man, gets into the box, and it's one of those ones that when it happened, I was like, he's taking a bit too long here. He should have played a ball across. Instead, he goes for the low shot. Ross Doohan in the goal for Tranmere made an absolute hash of it. I mean, that's a really easy one to save as well, isn't it? It's hit hard, but
yeah,
I'd be disappointed if Thomas Holy spilled that.
Yeah, he does, but at the same time, it shows having a striker take that shot on goal, even if you don't score, it can make things happen. And Sho Silva, all right, the keeper could have done better, but Sho Silva sort of basically made the goal happen by doing that.
Yeah. Does he count as an assist on your unofficial assist chart?
No, I'm a bit harsh, but yeah.
Oh, come on. You give assists when a player gets fouled for a penalty, for goodness sake.
Well, yeah, that's a good thing.
You're not giving one for a shot that was parried and the lad follows through.
No, but if it hits the woodwork and then the striker scores the rebound, that counts as an assist.
Unbelievable.
Officially.
You are so tight. That's pathetic.
Yeah.
There you go. Anyway, but yeah, so obviously Doohan spilled the ball, and Gibson was, to be fair, he didn't spill the ball out very far. It's just Gibson was so quick to react and hammered the ball into the roof of the net and give us a deserved lead going into the break, didn't he? It was, Sho Silva as well was close to getting a second for us, because brilliant again to play the offside trap and get away. And it's one of those ones where you look back at it now, you think, give it another month, a fully fit Toby Sho Silva gets away from his man then and probably slots it away, because you back him in those situations. He's decent with his one-on-ones, but he just was able to give the defender a little bit of time to get back and make a brilliant block to prevent the ball going in. Big shout out to Thomas Holy, though, in the first half for a brilliant save he made early on, didn't he? With Hemmings got away. He looked offside to me, but I think looking back on TV, he probably wasn't. He got through on goal, and Holy was really quick to come out and make himself big and make a really good save. Into the second half, as you mentioned there, Mike, already, Toby was absolutely shot. It's interesting, post-match, Paul Simpson in his interview did say, didn't he, that he'd already told Taylor Charters at half time, you're going to be going to be striker with half an hour to go. I'm really sorry, I've got no choice. And Taylor's like, yep, no problem, I'll do that. Rather than saying, I'm not sure about that, boss, which shows a great attitude of the lad as well. And Harris came on for Toby, and Taylor moved up front. And he probably didn't have that much of the ball, but what he did, he pressed the centre backs and didn't really give them much time. And we Holy didn't really have a huge amount to do in this game, to be brutally honest. So, and that was a testament to the work we did up front in terms of pressing. So yeah, Taylor did some great stuff, and then came the goal. Really good pressing from Harris, wins the ball about 25-30 yards from goal, plays it to Charters, who then lays a perfectly weighted ball into Harris's path. He goes, showing you first thought, he's right, just hit it. And he's like, no, I'm going to go towards the keeper. All right, hit it now. No, I'm going to go around the keeper. All right, no, come on, hit it. And he gets around the keeper, and I feel bad for him, because I feel if he got that little bit more power, onto his initial shot, we would have been raving about that goal for years.
Yeah.
We were saying, what a bit of play and what a finish. But because he'd done so much to get around the keeper, he was off balance and he hit it, and initially it looked like it wasn't going in. And fair play, he recovered to poke it home. And I think, as Simo said in the post-match, if it hadn't gone over the line, or if it had been kept out, Simo was getting sent off because he tried to handle the ball out the net.
It was a good save, almost.
It was a great save, wasn't it? Yeah. But yes, Harris got his goal, and that was really lovely to see. We'll talk a little bit more about Jaden in a minute. And then United were pretty comfortable, despite the fact that they were playing without a striker. Nick Ballado came on and did a lot of good running as well towards the end. But then just a sloppy bit of play from a set piece got Tranmere back into the game, didn't it? Switched off for a second. Guy let Hemmings get away from him but too easily. Hemmings hit a shot really powerful shot that Holy just had to parry, and it looped up, and again we were just caught a bit napping, and Byrne was there to head the ball into the empty net, and made for a slightly nervy last 10 minutes, but not that nervy. They had a few set pieces, but I wouldn't say there was any real big chances that made you think, I wasn't, despite the fact we didn't have that striker, I wasn't panicking and thinking, we're in danger here. It was just kind of, this is a bit more awkward than what I would have liked it to be. And they held on and got the deserved win and got into the second round. And at the end of the day, Mike, that's all you need at this stage of the competition, isn't it?
Exactly. And yeah, it was good to sort of get some more minutes in some players' legs as well. That'll help us out later on down the line. So yeah, all you can ask for, we're in the next round, and yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Well, a couple of talking points about that game before we get into the Harrogate one, which we'll talk in a bit more detail because we were both at that game. Yeah, really impressive win considering all the injuries continue to bite. And yeah, I mean, Toby, you got to tip your hat to him, haven't you, for the running he did, considering he clearly isn't match fit. And that's obvious. No. He's come back a lot sooner than I think Simo would have hoped. And it probably is going to help him build up his match fitness a bit better. But without jumping ahead a little bit too much here, we saw a bit of the knock-on effect, though, of playing that 60 minutes when he came down against Harrogate, didn't we? Because he didn't really look he didn't look as sharp as he did when he started against Tranmere. And I think that's just the effort he put in against them just took it out of his legs, didn't it?
Yeah, definitely. But I think when everyone's fully fit again, I'm a big fan of the chaos that he brings to the pitch when he comes on off the bench. And I think when we've got like a fully fit Edmondson, well, he is fit, but he's been suspended. Yeah. When we've got like Edmondson, Dennis, Stretton, Patrick even, and then you bring in Toby on at 60 minutes after, two of them four have run a defence ragged all game, I think we'll probably see quite a lot of goals from him.
Yeah. Well, again, without jumping ahead, he had an involvement in Moxon's goal as well against Harrogate. So there you go. But yeah, fair play to the lad. Terrific effort. Certainly couldn't fault it. Shout out to a couple more players. Jack Ellis, once again, a really impressive game. He got the official man of the match as well, quite rightly too. I thought he was. I christened him on Radio Cumbria the Kendall Cafu with my tweet to them, following up from the Denton home Pirlo. But he's been brilliant, hasn't he, when he comes into the team? It's just the thing that stands out with Ellis. When he played his early games, he's always looked to be very steady early on. Doesn't take any major risks, just keeps it very, very basic and very simple. But in this game, first 5-10 minutes, he was getting right up and down the pitch, and him and Gibson tore apart their left back. He could not cope. He just. I thought they were going to sub him at half time. That's how much they were turning him inside out for most of that half. But that's what impressed me. He's really growing into his role in the squad and in the team, and
he's getting more confident, isn't he? As well, that sort of shows. And I think Simo now, it was a case of, well, if Back is injured and can't play, I'll play Ellis. But I think now it's, well, if Back needs a bit of a rest, I know he can come in and do a job. Whereas before, I think maybe that's why Back was getting injuries, because he was playing too many games. And now we've got the luxury where we can afford to rest him because that Ellis can just come in and do the job.
You made an interesting point in the car over to Harrogate, actually. Again, jumping ahead here, but you about the kind of youth product he is. Because, as you pointed out, with a lot of our youth products in recent seasons, they're either excellent and get picked up very early, and we only see them for a handful of games, or they're not good enough and end up at Workington or Rannon and low leagues. We haven't had someone who we think to ourselves, we might get a good 100+ games out of him as a youth product in our team. And you feel like Ellis could be that kind of player because he's good. He's probably not championship level good yet, but he looks like someone who could build himself up over the next few years, find out what his best position is, and we'll get a decent amount of time out of him, won't we?
Yeah, definitely. And we've seen it too many times with youth players that take the move too soon, and it'd be very disappointing if he was to do the same. But I think Charters as well, you could say that he could go on to play over 100 games for us as well.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point, actually. I hadn't even thought really of Charters. I mean, the thing with Charters is it's taking a bit longer, hasn't it? Whereas Ellis has come in basically into his first year, hasn't he, as a youngster and established himself. Just interesting because you were saying that. I thought, I'm going to have a quick look here and see what has Liam McCarran done since he's gone to Port Vale on loan from Stoke. And the answer is 4 appearances since August. So, yeah, one of them came in the FA Cup game at the weekend, and bar that, and he was subbed off after 55 minutes in that game. So,
yeah,
there's a cautionary tale for any youngster coming through our ranks to look at what happened to him going too early. Unless you're going somewhere like Everton where you're going for big money as well. Not worth the risks. That's what I reckon anyway.
No, exactly.
Let's mention Jaden Harrison before we move on to the Harrogate game, Mike. And interesting one that Lummy was talking about on the post-match. I don't know if you heard this, because I think you were working over the weekend. Talking about Harrison, the fact that, and it's a fair point, people sort of need to realise, he's a young lad who's moved all the way up to Cumbria. He probably doesn't know anyone up here, really. And he's having to settle in it, and it can be difficult for players to settle sometimes.
Yeah.
And he's not starting every game, and obviously he was starting pretty much every game at Aldershot, so it's a different sort of challenge for him. Do you think maybe fans need to go off him? Because we heard a few grumbles about him on Tuesday night at Harrogate as well, which I thought were a little harsh. That said, I'm going to point out later that he did let a man get away from him on one of the goals. But do you feel that maybe fans need to maybe step off a little bit, and hopefully this goal might give him that little bit of confidence to kick on a bit more?
Yeah, I think that Simo wouldn't have wanted him to play as much and in as many different positions as he has done.
Yeah.
I think he's had his hand forced a little bit by injuries in that sense. So you can see that there's something there with him. I think people just need to be a little bit patient. And I think he has been a little bit of a scapegoat. I think people have been a little bit critical of him needlessly. And
do you feel
he's a project, isn't he? As you've sort of always said.
Do you feel the problem is that we're doing so well? It's actually quite hard to find the scapegoat sometimes when things don't go well, and you're basically picking the one player who doesn't actually play that much really, and he's done. That's the way maybe he's getting picked on a little bit. And I've said this before. I think he's got all the physical attributes to be a really good player. I mean, you look at his size, 6'2", 6'3", big, strong, wins his tackles, can win it in the air. He probably needs to be a little bit calmer on the ball. Maybe just needs to be sometimes a bit more involved when he comes on and a bit more switched on. But give it time, like you said, he's got a 3-year deal. He's got plenty of time to develop, and I think he could be a really good player for us potentially. We probably won't see it this season, but maybe next season once he's got a full pre-season behind him as well with us. Having played, let's say he plays 30-odd games this season, a lot of them as a sub, yes, but if he does that, potentially we've got a really good player, I think, for the future.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, people criticising him and that, it's not helpful. It's not constructive criticism that we're hearing at Harrogate. It was just people saying he was crap, really. Whereas if you're a bit more constructive and said, "Oh, you should have passed it there" or something, it's maybe a little bit helpful. But I don't think it helps anyone just mindlessly criticising players. No,
I'd agree with that one, definitely. Right, let's move on to the next game then, Mike. Harrogate 3. I should say before we do it, we haven't got any 6-second reviews this week. I haven't had time to sort them out. I have had time to the behind enemy line, so that'll be coming up after the break. But there you go. So yeah, Harrogate Town 3, Carl United 3. We've got a point against them at Harrogate as well, so we've ended that run of defeats there. But beyond that, not the greatest performance in the world, but in terms of quality. But in terms of heart, couldn't fault them for the effort, could you?
No. And I've got to take my hat off to Harrogate, to be honest, because I think they played very, very well and they moved the ball around very well. And we didn't really know what to do with them. And our opening goal came a little bit against the run of play, which sometimes happens in games. You get players who just score a screamer out of nowhere, and that's pretty much what happened because it was a great goal. But yeah, I mean, I think Harrogate will feel hard done by not getting the 3 points. But good, as we said on the way home, great teams manage to get something out of a game that you haven't been at the races for.
Definitely. I think I 100% agree with you there, by the way, that, Harrogate, I was quite impressed with them. They played some really nice football. They've got some really good little plays. I mean, the lad Headley in defence, he looks a real player, doesn't he? He basically ran the game from... was he left back or left centre back? It was hard to tell, really, but he was...
Yeah.
He got up and down. He was quite reminiscent in a weird way of Mellish in the way he played, wasn't he? The amount he got up the pitch and attacked, really. And we'll talk about Mellish in just a sec, obviously. But yeah, I think you made this point, didn't you? Or maybe it was Sam who was with us, who I know is listening to the pod, that it was quite a small, tight pitch. You didn't get that impression from the way they played. They were finding a lot of space on it, weren't they?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's always been a sort of tight pitch there, hasn't it? And their first goal, the Armstrong goal, they'd been trying them balls and behind quite a bit, and there isn't a lot of space to get them. And I think they've probably tried it as many as maybe 10 times, but if you get that right once, it's a goal. And it was a goal, and I don't know if it was part of their game plan, because they played a few sort of in between Huntington and Whelan on that left-hand side, and they both kind of left them for each other a little bit, and then Holy would end up coming out for it.
Yeah.
But then for their goal, it all just went horribly wrong in that sense.
Well, let's talk about the goals then, Mike. First up, you've already sort of touched on it, but Taylor Charters, what a goal. I mean, you slightly just disagreed with me on the walk back to the car, but I think this is currently goal of the season, basically. Because it's just a wonderful bit of play. I mean, first of all, really good pressing, actually, to win the ball back deep in their half when they had the throw-in. I think it was Edmondson finds Dennis, who then plays a nice little ball inside for Charters. Sets himself nicely, and we were right behind it, weren't we, basically? It was right in front.
You knew as soon as it left his foot, didn't you?
Oh, yeah. You were like, this is a good one. At the very least, it was probably going to hit the bar. And what a hit it was. Right over the keeper. He had no chance. Into the roof of the net. 25 yards, bang, 1-0.
But again, got to say it, Jack Armour, if you watch the highlights, he's dragging the defender miles away from Charters.
Yeah.
So the Red Sea opened. He had loads of space to shoot. If Armour wasn't up there, he wouldn't have done.
No, absolutely, definitely. 100% agree on that one. That was on 12 minutes, 28 minutes. Harrogate equalised for that goal from Luke Armstrong, who had a pretty decent game for them up front, I have to say, as well. But a sloppy goal to concede, wasn't it? I think Burrell plays the ball out of defence to Muldoon. He was able to turn just a little bit too easily for me. And then plays that free ball for Armstrong. It's one of those weird ones. I saw it. It's like, I still can't really work out. Should Huntington maybe do a bit better? I think it's Huntington's not going to have any pace. We know that. He's 34 years old now. There's kind of a feeling like, could he have maybe pulled him back to stop him? But you're risking potentially, if the ref looks at that, he might even look and think it's a red card. Well,
I think, looking back, Huntington actually gave him quite a narrow shooting window, if you like. But Holy been so far off his line meant that it was quite easy for Armstrong to poke it. And I'm not having a go at Holy for being off his line, because, like I say, they played a lot of them balls through, and Holy had to come out to collect them. But it was just, they just didn't seem on the same wavelength, Whelan, Holy and Huntington.
Yeah. We're big fans of Big Tomash, but in my opinion, I think he was a little bit too slow to come out. And we did think that at the time, we obviously, again, we were right behind the goal there, and it was just that little bit of a lack of decisiveness, wasn't it? It was kind of like, it wasn't much, that's the thing. If he just decided that split second earlier and gone, right, I'm going for this, he could have gone and cleaned it out and got the ball, but he just paused slightly, and then fair play to Armstrong. It's a smart finish through Holy's legs, and Feeney, he was quite a slow ball, wasn't he? He wasn't hit with power. Feeney just couldn't quite get back in time to clear it off the line.
No, but I mean, at the same time, though, while we're sort of questioning, could our players have done better? I think if it was one of our players that had played that ball through, I think we'd be saying what a fantastic ball that is, because that's what you want. You want the kind of ball through that causes a lot of havoc, and people don't know how to deal with it. And it's just one of them goals. But Armstrong looked quite a handful, to be honest.
Yeah, well, first half he did. I don't think he was quite as involved second half, to be honest. But after the break, they clearly had a bit of a rocket from Samo, as you'd expect. Came out a little bit stronger, and good play by Moxon, keeping the ball. And I thought he could have gone down, because lad dived in and didn't get anywhere near him, or near the ball, sorry. But he kept the ball, played out wide to Armour, and he set himself up. And what a crossing this was.
Yeah.
I mean, again, this is one where we had a brilliant view of this, didn't we? Because we were, as you look at the goal, we were to the right of the goal, right at the front row of it, and we could see directly as soon as he played that ball, we're like, if anyone gets a touch on this is a goal. 100% it's a goal.
And taking nothing away from Edmondson, absolutely anyone could have scored that, because it was such a peach of a cross.
Anyone who's seen Edmondson's Instagram post will see he's been posting the old plate with the knives and forks, to saying basically that Armour put it on a plate for him and fed him his dinner, and thank you very much. And he was a great header though, to be fair. There's always a risk with those ones. You go in a bit too quickly and you get under the ball and send it over, and he just powered it in. Keeper had absolutely no chance. And
he had a good game as well, Edmondson, overall.
He did, considering he got a really silly booking. The only player booked he got for us, he got really silly booking, pulling back there, lad, for no reason. He didn't need to do it. He was in their half as well. And then, literally about 3 or 4 minutes later, dived in on a tackle that led to a chance for them where they hit the post. And the ref did say to him after that, didn't he? We saw him had a word and said, "That's your final one.
Yeah,
you can't do another one." So to play for that, we thought he might well come off at half time here, because he's getting himself into some bother. But
I mean, I was not saying he should come off at half time at all. I was saying he should stay on the pitch and score a goal. That's what I was saying.
You're a liar. To be fair, I thought he might come off. I didn't say he should, but I thought he might, because I felt he was in danger. But very, very well disciplined, to be fair, and credit to him for the second half. He did a lot of running, to be fair, and actually, caused their defence countless problems throughout the game. But then 2 goals for Harrogate got them not just back level, but then into the lead. First up, Burrell. Again, one of those ones that wasn't great defensively. Corner to the near post. He was marked, but not very tightly. Got up and headed it past Holy. And I've heard a few people criticising Holy for this one. I wouldn't expect a keeper to come to his near post and claim a ball like that.
No,
it's not. If it's into the middle of the 6-yard box, if it was like halfway across, I totally understand. But there's no way he's coming to get that, to be fair. It's a good ball and good header, but again, could have made it tougher for him, I think it's fair to say. That got them level, and then, as you mentioned, Harrogate's best player on the night, Headley, got his deserved goal 50 minutes ago. United, this is one where Harris should have done a bit better, in my opinion. He gets past Harris a little bit too easily. Even if you bring him down and you give away a booking, fine, you can live with that. That's just try and keep it tight. And then it's a shot on the stretch, isn't it? When you look back at it, I thought it was a really good finish for us, but actually he's really struggling to get to it. But fair play, he got the power on it, and Holy didn't really have much of a chance, and it flew into the bottom corner. And then Harrogate made a substitution, didn't they? They took off. Was it Muldoon they took off? They took off one of the strikers and threw on Rory McArdle. Now, Rory McArdle, what did we say at the game, Mike? What did you say about him?
Well, I think he must have had a very difficult paper round, because he looked about 45 years old.
He's 35. I thought he was actually older than that. So he's 35 years old. He was thrown on, big centre-back, and they basically threw an extra defending because they knew we were going to go for it. And my God, did we go for it, to be fair. We must have had of our corners, I think about 6 of them came in that last 5-10 minutes, didn't they? First up, Huntington had a brilliant chance for a cross-in header, and the keeper made a brilliant save to palm it over.
Which would have won you a few quid.
Oh, I'm fuming about this. So I put on I like to put on a little silly £1 bet. I don't put daft money on because, it's just for me, it's just a bit of fun. So I put a £1 bet on Taylor Charter to score any time, Ryan Edmondson to score any time, and Paul Huntington to score any time, which would have won me my £1 bet £275. So Yeah, when he saved that, I was like, you've absolutely. But yeah, so that was a bit fearing. Feeney then had a really good chance of a header that I think the keeper saved, and one that went just over. And you just got this feeling, we're going to play all night and we're not going to get anywhere near scoring. But then, 93rd minute, cometh the hour, cometh the man, one of our own once again. Owen Moxon, well, he initially took the corner. I completely forgot this until I watched back the goal. I was like, oh, wow, not only did he score, he actually took the initial corner that it came from. So his sort of high loop, it looked a bit too high at first, didn't he, his initial corner. Feeney gets on the end of it, heads it. There's a few shouts for handball. It's never a handball in a million years.
No.
The lad blocks it. Comes to the edge of the box where Feeney then tries a left foot half volley that is blocked. And then on the third attempt, the ball sort of comes back out to him. And this time, he's very calm, plays it to Finn Back. Finn Back sends in not the highest cross in the world, is it? In towards the 6-yard box where Toby Silva actually goes for the header and isn't too far off getting on it.
I think he gets a touch on it.
I don't think it's him. I think it's the defender. I've watched it back a couple times. I think it's Burrell, the defender, it comes off. Who basically...
Well, I credited Silva with the assist anyway to make up for last Saturday.
That makes up for last Saturday then. And yeah, it comes to the far post where Moxon, and fair play, you could easily thrash at this. You could easily completely cock it up and not get a good contact. Brilliant header.
Yeah.
Low header into the net. Keeper's got no chance. 3-3. Those fans behind the goal, including us, go mad. Morgan Feeney was celebrating with me and a couple of us, wasn't he? He was loving it. He was fuming, wasn't he? He was just proper angry. Yes, sort of shouts from him. And then, goal goes in, level, and then there was only about 10 seconds after the kickoff, wasn't there? And the final whistle went, and I really did feel for Harrogate. I thought, on another day, fair play, great 3 points to them. And they don't look like a side that's down where they are, do they? I have a feeling they'll probably, if they can keep that squad fit and they play like that every week, they'll drag themselves away from trouble.
Surely.
I can't see them being down there. But yeah, I mean, main points of this, Mike, for me, were it was a bit of a poor performance, but the spirit, that's the thing that really stands out in this squad. They fight, don't they, till the very end? Yeah,
definitely. And for me, though, I think listening to Simo's comments after the game, he hasn't been getting too drawn into talking about us going for promotion.
Yeah.
But given his reaction, that promotion is the goal this season. Because it was a poor game and we weren't really at the races. And to salvage a point, for a team that is maybe aiming to finish mid-table, the manager would say, I'm glad we got the point in the end. It was great character. But he was not happy. I mean, he did say those sorts of things, but he was not happy at all.
Well, interesting though, I took a slightly different view of it. I feel like he still thinks we're not quite there because he was talking. There's some of the words he used were along the lines of we're not good enough to think we can get away with playing that badly in a game, basically. And I think he's almost tempering expectations a little bit there. But you're probably right. And they're probably now we've gotten to ourselves in such a good position. Playoffs at least has to be an aim, you'd think. But yeah. I mean, let's talk about the main issue in the team for this game. Obviously, we mentioned about the team selection. Corey Edmo obviously came in, and Dennis came in for Silva. Gibson dropped out surprisingly, though, didn't he? That was a little bit of a surprise. Came on, did fairly well when he came on, but 2 or 3 times he's trying fancy flicks, and he needs to cut that out a little bit. In a game like this, it's all right if you're winning a game 2-0. I can live with him doing it then. Few fancy flicks and try some clever things then, but when you're chasing a game, when you're at 2-2 or you're 3-2 down, don't need any of that crap, if I'm brutally honest. No need for it, because you know what? He's good enough to do well without doing that sort of stuff, and that's the reason why it's annoying. So yeah, but yeah, still, to be fair, he did have a good impact, Gibson, when he came on. He did probably of the subs, he probably was the better of the 3. But yeah, I mean, the big question, obviously, before the game is who would come in for John Mellish. And it was Corey Whelan in the end. And I don't think Whelan had the worst game in the world, I thought he was okay.
It was clear that isn't his position.
No, he looked uncomfortable, but actually, when he had the ball and didn't have too much pressure on him, he was okay. He kept it. A few times he didn't just lever it out. He tried to find armour. But it's not so much the fact that he was targeted or he was weak in that position. It's we missed John Mellish, didn't we? And I don't think anyone could doubt now how important Mellish is to the way we play.
Yeah, I mean, I said it about 10 minutes in, because we just couldn't bring the ball out of defence, really.
And we didn't have
that's what
someone
he does
stepping
so
out.
well.
We didn't have someone stepping out to win the ball either, did we?
Exactly. And so looking forward to him being back in the team this weekend, hopefully.
Yeah, I don't think there's much doubt about him coming back and if he's fit, is there, really? But a slight question, maybe should Duncan Idahan been given a run out in that position?
I mean, it kind of begs the question, why sign him if you're not going to play him in that situation?
I suppose maybe he's thinking, I need to go for experience here, against someone like Luke Armstrong, who's, caused us problems in the past. Muldoon especially has caused us a lot of problems in the past. But in the end, we went to the back four at half time, didn't we? And, pushed went back four, and Charters dropped back into midfield. I can't remember what it was now, but basically Gibson obviously came on and played more as a front.
It's a bit of a diamond, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was sort of a diamond, wasn't it? A guy sort of sitting and Gibson at the tip and Charters and Moxon either side. But there you go. Should note that Owen Moxon was actually given the WhoScored.com man of the match in this game with a rating of 8.9.
Which I think is his best game for the club, apparently. Which I
don't
buy.
I don't think, but that it's all based on stats, isn't it, and things like that.
Yeah.
But it just goes to show, maybe sometimes you don't realise that, stats-wise, when you look at the average ratings of the players in this game, ours weren't that far off Harrogate's. But maybe it's that last 10 minutes or so and the pressure we put on really helped with that. I suppose it was fairly constant pressure by that point, wasn't it? So there you go. But one of those ones, accept that it's not a good enough performance, but we got something from it, and just look at where we can be better in those situations going forward.
Yeah, definitely.
That's the best way of looking, isn't it? Right, we'll take a short break, and then we'll be back to preview the Walsall game.
This is John Mellish. You listen to the Brunton Bugle.
I thought Big John was very appropriate for the halftime break today, as he was the one we missed on Tuesday night. So nice to hear his voice and hopefully see him playing at the weekend. Right, so let's preview the Walsall home game. Obviously back to league action at Brunton Park. We have a behind enemy line section this week. We've had it off for a few weeks, haven't we? Because I've either been away and not had time to sort stuff, or we've not been able to find an opposition pod for Harrogate, as has been the case, because they don't seem to have any online fans. Because it's surprising that, because it's very posh Harrogate, isn't it?
It's full of old people, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's fair point. It's Leeds fans who can't afford.
That's not to say that old people don't know how to use the internet, but
no, true.
Some of them don't. Anyway,
yes, let's move on. Right, so for this week's Behind My Line section, I spoke to Tom from the One Pod Beyond Walsall Podcast. We spoke to him, I think, last season as well. Actually, we had a really good chat with Tom. What did we talk about? We talked about the Saddlers' slow start to the season, their American takeover in the summer, how that's getting on, and where on earth is Joe Riley yet to make a competitive appearance for Walsall? So we talked a little bit about those things and a few other bits. So here's a chat I had with Tom. So after a few weeks off, we're back. Finally, we've got an away fan to come on to do the Behind Enemy Line section. And this week we've got Tom from the One Pod Beyond Walsall Podcast. Tom, thank you very much for joining us.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, it's good to have someone on, because we've had a bit of a problem. I've been trying to get. I didn't have time to get a Tranmere fan, and then Harrogate don't appear to have any fans on the internet. By the looks of things, it just proved a bit of a nightmare. But there you go. Let's talk about all things Walsall then. Been quite a slow start to the season for the Saddlers, wasn't it? But things really seem to have started to pick up in the last few weeks, especially. What's been the main factor in that sort of turnaround of form?
Yeah, we started really well in the first 3 games. We won our first 3 games and then didn't win for 12 after that. Fans started to get a little bit twitchy, but, still believed in Michael Flynn. Obviously, his track record speaks for itself. He needed time to turn Newport round, and I think we knew that he would need time to turn us round as well. And so, fans didn't stop believing in Flynn despite performances dropping. But in the last 7 or 8 games, we really do seem to have turned a corner. We've won 4, drawn 2 and lost 1 in the league. And on Saturday went to Wickham and turned them over in the FA Cup. So, I think really it was just that the players needed time to gel. There was another big turnover in the summer. We've had a horrendous run with injuries. It was just a case of the players taking time to learn each other's games, to understand what Flynn wanted from them, and it really seems to be paying off now. We look like a different side, to be honest.
Was there ever a feeling of that run of 12 games without a win? Because I remember we talked about it in our podcast. We do a little review of the League Two results, and we were saying, when does it get to a point with him that maybe they start to worry about, have we made the right decision in him as manager? But it sounds like as fans, there wasn't too much of discontent in terms of we want to get rid of the manager during that period.
No, I think as Walsall fans, we understand over the last sort of 4 or 5 seasons, we've tried absolutely everything. We've had the returning hero in Dean Keats. We've had the established League Two manager in Clark. We had the untried manager in Matt Taylor, and I think we knew that there came a point where it was like, well, is it us rather than the managers? That coincided with a change in ownership, so we've got new American owners who seem to be doing all the right things so far. No complaints about them. So I think there was a sense that we just needed to give Flynn time. So he never lost the fans despite not winning for 12 games. And to be fair, we weren't getting battered week in, week out. We still haven't lost a game in the league by more than 1 goal all season. So I think it's fine margins, and the fans realise that, and we're happy to give him a bit of time. And it's kind of been proved to have been the right decision, because we do definitely seem to have turned a corner.
You preempted my next question there by talking about the takeover, because I was going to ask you about that. So that obviously took place in the summer, and obviously you've got your new American owners. So it all seems to be going pretty well with them, because I know that the previous owner was in place for quite a while, wasn't he? And by all accounts, not an overly popular person, I seem to remember.
Yeah, I mean, there was an interim manager in between the Americans and Jeff Bonser, who was Jeff Bonser was there for 30 years, and presided over a sort of relatively strong period where we were playing in the Championship. We had 4 or 5 seasons in the Championship over 2 different campaigns, but then there was definitely a feeling that we'd stagnated after that. And Lee Pomlett took over, who was on the board already, so there was a sense that it wasn't someone completely new. It was someone taking over from within. I think he got a lot of goodwill purely by not being Jeff Bonser. And then the takeover in the summer by this American investment group was completely out of the blue. I mean, it hadn't leaked at all. The club had kept it very, very tight. I think only about 2 or 3 people within the club knew anything about it. There were sort of quite senior people at board level who knew nothing about it until the fans did. And so it was a complete surprise. But I wrote an article for When Saturday Comes not long ago about American owners and how they might not be all they're cracked up to be in terms of what they want from football. Is often not particularly what fans want. You think of the European Super League, the Glazers, FSG at Liverpool. The Americans have very much been the driving force behind trying to change the British system or the English system for the worse, in my opinion. Our American owners, obviously are not in that same sort of billionaire Premier League class. And they do seem to be doing stuff right, that they've made sort of strides to improve the matchday experience. We seem more professional in our sort of media output, which you would expect from sort of slick American businessmen. Yeah. And they've made sort of inroads into improving the infrastructure. So I don't know if you've ever been in the Saddlers Club, which was the only sort of...
I had a question to ask you about that as well, so yeah, go on.
The only bar for sort of miles around near Bescot Stadium, now the Poundland Bescot Stadium, of course. So there's talk of them reopening that, because that's been derelict for quite a few years. Yeah. And the big one, of course, is buying the ground back. We haven't owned Bescot since we moved there in 1990 through a long series of shenanigans, which I won't bore you with. But if we could get the freehold of the ground back and actually own our own ground for the first time since it was built over 30 years ago. That would be a massive feather in their cap.
Yeah.
So, they've earned a lot of goodwill so far, although, quite a few Walsall fans who've been following us for as long as I have are still slightly cynical about their motives. They're an American investment group. They want to make a return on their money. Not entirely sure how they do that, but at the moment they've still got a lot of goodwill from fans.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'm glad you answered that question about the Saddest Club. I was going to ask you, is there any plans to get that open again? Because that is something that I do miss when I go to Walsall. Because it used to be great to go in there for a drink, and now you have to drink in that is it the Park Inn next door? It's not quite.
Yeah, you can't even drink there anymore because it's. I think it's a hotel exclusively for asylum seekers now, possibly COVID cases. But yeah, there's a reason why that's not open anymore. So
we've got even more of a walk to find a pub than probably are. Well,
indeed.
So you sort of touched on Mike Flynn before, but you all seem quite happy with him as a manager so far. 'Cause, I mean, as you said, quite a big turnover of players in the summer. I mean, I think it was 11 have gone out, 19 coming in. Well, that's practically a full squad coming in. You're pretty happy with the business he did over the summer as well? Because, I mean, I'm looking in... You lost Osadebe to Bradford, but other than that, the one you lost, I wouldn't imagine you'd be that fussed on, really.
No, I mean, there was a lot of deadwood in that squad. Matty Taylor's squad from the start of last season included... it was big name heavy. You think of sort of Connor Wilkinson, Josh Labadie, Manny Monthe. They're all established League Two players and probably came with decent wages as well. Beyond that, we were really sort of struggling. This squad this season is much more balanced, and we seem to have brought in quite a few players, who are hitting the ground running. So. Isaac Hutchinson came in from Derby, who Wayne Rooney was a big fan of, and Derby fans were hoping might have stayed. We brought in Tom Knowles from Yeovil, who Mike Flynn bigged up by saying he was in his opinion, the best player in the conference, and he's been really good as well so far. Danny Johnson obviously came in on loan from Mansfield and has scored a lot of our goals. We were, supposed to be bringing him in permanently, and then at the last minute, Mansfield got cold feet and would only loan him to us. So it remains to be seen whether they, recall him in January in a bid to scupper us as a potential playoff or top half rival. And then Liam Bennett as well, who came in on loan from Cambridge and has been our best player so far this season. But again, is another one who we're slightly worried may get recalled in January.
Oh, there you go. I've got to ask you about the ex-Blues in your squad. So before we toss to the one that doesn't seem to have disappeared off the face of the earth so far, let's talk about Brandon Comley, because he's one who we had on loan from QPR quite a few years ago. He then came back on trial with us in January or February, I think it was. In fact, no, it might be March, actually. It was under Simpson, and I think he decided it wasn't worth keeping him in because we had enough as it was. How's he doing so far? I saw he got sent off the other day, but he seems to be doing okay.
Yeah, I mean, he's very similar to our most long-serving player in Liam Kinsella, who plays that sort of holding role in front of the defence. For a large part of the season, fans were grumbling that they couldn't play together because they were too similar. And then as soon as Comley got sent off and missed the game, we were 3-0 up at home against Harrogate after 30 minutes. Now, I'm not saying that's cause and effect necessarily. And to be fair, he came back in and played alongside Kinsella at Wickham and was excellent in a sort of in a box midfield that sort of protected the back four and overran Wickham in midfield when we had possession. So, yeah, I mean, he's been a valuable squad member, not one of the most heralded who came in. I think we signed him from Dagenham and Redbridge. Yeah. But he's done a job, albeit it remains to be seen whether, him and Kinsella play together going forward when we need to attack teams more at home. I would still, possibly prefer just Kinsella there and then a few more attacking options in midfield, to be honest. But, he's been okay.
Well, let's talk about another midfield option, a man who has yet to make a competitive appearance for you, but has obviously made quite a few appearances for the Blues. It's Joe Riley. What's gone wrong there? I mean, it sounds like he's had an injury. They haven't been able to work out what the problem is, because it's strange, because before he came to us, he'd only made 6 league appearances, I think, in his career or something like that before he actually signed for us. And he made, something like 50, 60 odd, maybe even more for us. And now he's back to having injury problems again.
Yeah, I mean, out all season and doesn't appear to be any closer to a return. I think they're on record now as saying they finally do know what the issue is, but they've been very, very quiet about it. We don't know anything more than that, I'm afraid, which is a shame, because, he seemed to be a relatively promising signing, but we've not seen hide nor hair of him, unfortunately. I just hope he gets back to fitness soon, to be honest.
He's a good player, Joe. It's an interesting one, because he left under a little bit of a cloud, actually, because he obviously turned down his contract, but he basically, although Simpson hasn't confirmed this, effectively he has done by saying one of the players admitted to him basically he'd been tapped up and didn't seem to realise he'd been tapped up, because he said, I've already spoken to another club and sorted a deal, and Simpson was like, you can't actually do that yet unless it's a Scottish club. And he was a bit like, I think he was a bit taken back, oh right, okay, I haven't done that. And I think he basically knew he was going at that point. But yeah, it's an interesting one, because I think in the summer a lot of our fans were disappointed to see him go, but actually now when we look at it, he probably would struggle to get on our bench at the moment, because we're very strong in midfield. That's an area where we're really well packed in. He played right wing back a lot under Simpson, and again, right wing back we're very well stocked there. So again, he probably would struggle to get in the team there. Good lad though, really good lad. He's someone who worked really hard when he was in the team. But
he's done the co-commentary on local radio a couple of times, and sort of kicks every ball. And when we're holding on at 1-0 with 7 minutes of injury time, he's cheering when we're clearing it and all the rest of it. So I think he's endeared himself to fans through that. But let's hope we actually see him on the pitch at some point this season, because otherwise, it does seem to have been a bit of a waste of a wage, unfortunately.
I had a look through our squad to try and find ex-Saddlers in there, and I was really struggling. I was thinking, I don't think anyone in our playing squad has played for you guys. And then I remembered our manager, Paul Simpson. He had a short loan spell with you guys, didn't he? I think back in 1998. Do you have any memories of that? I'm going to guess no from the 10 appearances he's made.
I do remember Simpson. I mean, any player who comes to us with a Wolves connection is not going to get off on the best foot. But I think people genuinely sort of enjoyed him when he was here. I don't have a huge memory of that 10-game spell, but he was a decent player, had a decent career. We were talking the other day about on Twitter about whether we could go through an entire FA Cup campaign beating teams who have ex-Walsall players in their ranks. So obviously Gareth Ainsworth is the Wycombe manager and had a spell on loan with us. We've obviously got you in the next round of the FA Cup. Paul Simpson's there, and then there are a few other teams we could play. Norwich with Dean Smith comes to mind, and I think there are a couple of others as well. So Russell Martin, the Swansea manager, had a absolutely horrific spell on loan with us. Maybe look forward to locking horns with him again.
I mean, just about the FA Cup draw before we finish up. Were you guys as disappointed as we were? It's a bit of a boring tie, isn't it? For us, it's ridiculous as well, because we obviously played Tranmere in the last round, and we played Tranmere the week before that in the league, and we're now playing you guys in the second round 2 weeks before that in the league. So it's one of those ones, isn't it? I suppose for you guys, you look at it as a home tie, a winnable tie, but yeah, a little bit boring, I suppose. Yeah,
I think we were happy it was at home. We would have, obviously we would have liked a non-league side, because then you're much more likely to get the TV cash, aren't you? But we've had shocking cup draws for about the last 7 or 8 years, so we're pretty much used to it now. But yeah, it's a home tie. We've won our last 4 at home, so we're pretty strong at home these days. But we'll have a better idea of of it after we play you on Saturday, because the games come around pretty quickly, don't they?
They do indeed. Well, Tom, before we finish up, we always ask the opposition pod for their predictions. So, what are you going for this weekend?
Well, we've won our last 4 at home. We've drawn 2 out of 3 away. So I think I can see that sort of trend continuing. So I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw.
Okay, well, that'll do. I think we're probably quite happy with that, because our form's gone slightly iffy in some of the recent games, but there you go. Tom, thanks for your time, and all the best for the rest of the season. After this weekend, and not including 2 weeks after that. I've got to remember that as well. There you go.
Cheers, Lee.
Yeah, cheers again, Tom, for giving up your time to speak to us this week on the pod. I should say, I've just realised now when I've been listening back that I forgot to mention Hayden White as one of the former Blues in their squad. I only mentioned Joe Riley and Brandon Comley, so I do apologise for Hayden White. Who could forget that red card at Portsmouth, eh? Like, genuinely one of the... I'm going to have to dig that on YouTube and stick up, because it's one of the... I mean, it was borderline assault. It was horrendous.
Yeah.
And like,
it's the fact that John McGee, who was with us, was insistent that it was never a red card at the time. And I don't think I've ever seen a more obvious red card in my life.
But then he watched it back later and he's like, yeah, and he sent me a message from him saying, yeah, that was a red card, wasn't it? I'm like, yes, it was, John. Well done. But there you go. John's obviously a listener as well, so I'm sure he'll enjoy his little shout out there. Yeah, Mike, so let's get into it. United v Walsall this weekend at Brunton Park. Referee for this one, Ollie Yates from Staffordshire. It's his 7th season as an EFL referee. He's taken charge of 16 games so far this season, handing out 74 yellow cards and 1 red card. I mean, that's pushing on averaging 5 yellows a game. So he's quite card happy. Not so much on the reds, but last season he handed out 95 yellows and 4 reds in 28 games. So his average number of yellows has certainly increased quite a bit, hasn't it, actually? Whereas his number of reds has decreased by the looks of things. So interesting way things go sometimes. The last United game he took charge of was the 0-0 home draw against Hartlepool back in February. Jordan Gibson was booked for United that evening. I couldn't even remember that game. When I looked it up there, I was like, we drew 0-0 with Hartlepool last season? I mean, that was during one of those periods where we weren't very good. I think that might be
Millen was in charge then, I think.
That might have been Millen's penultimate game in charge, actually, when I think about it.
Yeah.
I have a feeling. So, God, yeah, it's going back a bit now, isn't it? There you go. Head-to-head record, it's going to be the 64th meeting between the two sides. United have won 20, drawn 19, and the Saddlers have won 24. Our recent record against them is quite good, actually, I think we lost against them at the end of last season. I have a funny feeling, I'm trying to get it to load up here. I had it up before, but it's disappeared now. I have a funny feeling... Before that, let me have a look. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, that's basically their first win in the last 7 games against us. In fact, they haven't won that many since probably about 2008. They've only beat us 4 or 5 times. Quite a lot of draws in there as well, but it shows how far behind we were in terms of the head-to-head, and we're slowly catching up with them on that, I suppose. But there you go. Yeah. We talk about some clubs being busy in the transfer market, don't we, Mike? My God, they've been busy this summer, haven't they? 19 signings.
Ridiculous, isn't it?
It's astonishing. 19 incoming, 11 leaving. I'm presuming they lost a few loan players as well, so that's probably why there's been quite a big turnaround too. But it's an interesting one. When they got took over by their new American owners, there was a feeling of not like a case of, they're suddenly the big money club in the division, but there was a thought of, okay, they might start getting a slightly better standard of player coming in. And would you say that's the case when you look through the players they've got there? I mean, there's a few players there, but it's a hard one to judge.
Yeah, I mean, because they were sort of splashing the cash a bit, and I had them tipped to be in the playoffs this season. But I mean, Comley for one is that he was on trial with us last season, and was deemed not good enough when we were crap.
It's true.
And so for them to somehow deem him as good enough, I don't know.
I should point out this is the time as well when we were playing Brennan Dickinson in centre midfield.
Yeah,
so we could have done with another midfielder probably in there. There you go. I mean, looking through some of the arrivals, I mean, there's a few that stand out, don't they? So, I mean, Peter Clark ending his association with Tranmere. He's, 40,
I thought
41?
that was a good signing, to be honest.
don't think he's played as much, is he? I think he came on as like a sub with a couple of minutes to go against Wycombe at the weekend. Don't know if he's played too much before that. Obviously, they've already got Manny Monfort there. He used to play for Tranmere as well. Andy Williams, I mean, very experienced forward. Probably not going to get as many goals for you these days as he has done in the past, but he'll add a bit of a knowledge up front. I mean, the obvious one, Danny Johnson, on loan from Mansfield Town. Initially, it was going to be a permanent deal, but I think Mansfield had a little minor panic at the last minute and thought, oh, maybe we shouldn't do this, and only loaned him out. And I think there's concern there that he'll probably get recalled in January if Walsall are doing fairly well and round about where Mansfield are. Yeah, he's an interesting one, isn't he? Because he had a really good spell at Orient for probably half a season where he just scored for fun. And then doesn't quite work out for him the second half of the season. Ends up going to Mansfield at the start of last season. And it really didn't work out for him there, did it?
No, he seems to be one of them strikers that you need to play to cater to him.
Yeah.
And if you don't do that, then he's not going to score as many goals.
Yeah, I remember the Mansfield guy, when we spoke to him before the game earlier this season, did say that, because we talked about him leaving, I think he did say that there was kind of a feeling he didn't really fit in at Mansfield and round the club, not so much he was a bad egg, but he didn't feel like he'd settled there at all. Hence why he's obviously made a move now to Walsall on loan. It seems to be a bit happier there. He's got a fair few goals up there with Dennis, isn't he, in the scoring charts, I think. Looking through something, let's talk about the obvious one then. Joe Riley. Riley now, if he was put if we suddenly re-signed him, right, out of nowhere, and he was fit, he doesn't get an our starting 11, does he?
No.
Does he get onto the bench?
I think he'd maybe get on the bench right now, purely for his versatility, I think. But him going paved the way for Jack Ellis, which, is a good thing, really, every cloud. And all that.
Him going has paved the way for Finn Back and Jack Ellis, a right wing back. It's probably opened up a role for Owen Moxon in midfield, and Taylor Charters has stepped up as well. Yeah. Is he getting in ahead of those two? I'm not really sure he is, to be honest.
No. Well, yeah, certainly not at the minute when he's injured anyway.
Oh, no, of course not.
But yeah, and seemingly it's something that, well, reading between the lines of this little issue he's got going on, is if he'd have stayed with us, he would have had this issue anyway. Possibly,
yeah. I mean, he had a little injury towards the end of last season, didn't he? I think so. Maybe that might be a little recurrence of that, possibly. But yes, maybe in the nicest way possible. Maybe we've dodged a slight bullet there in that sense. But
it was a player I rated him. I'm not. For 1 second saying he's a bad player, but I think we've moved on. Really.
Yeah, I think he'd probably. I think he'd be in and out of the squad, to be honest, at the moment. I don't think he'd be on the bench every single week. I think he's. Yeah, I don't think Simo's overly disappointed that he's gone, and obviously the whole tapping up thing as well probably didn't help things either, did it? I don't think. Yeah, not the brightest moment from poor Joe, was it? But there you go. Yeah, so it's interesting. Obviously, he's not been able to feature for them, and they, like Tom was saying there, they don't know what kind of player he is because they haven't really seen him. He's played a couple of pre-season games, and that's it. So apparently he's been very good on the radio with them, though. He's been very enthusiastic. So there you go. Any other players stand out in their squad?
Josh Labadie is, he knows what he's doing at this level, doesn't he? And I think
Baddy being the appropriate term, isn't it? Really,
definitely.
He's very much a pantomime villain, isn't he?
Yeah, definitely. So I think got to be careful of him in the dark arts, perhaps. Obviously, we touched on it before. Hayden White, good fullback. But yeah, there's nothing that I'd particularly say I'm afraid of, to be honest.
No, obviously Connor Wilkinson up front. He's scored a few goals at Orient as well, but he's out injured at the moment, I think, so he probably won't be involved at the weekend, I would imagine. Last time out, Walsall got a very good result there, didn't they, in the FA Cup? A 2-0 win at Wycombe Wanderers, the League One side. Goals either side of the break from Maddox and Hutchinson were enough for them to secure a place in the second round, where they will obviously face us. And obviously keeper Owen Evans, he saved a penalty to secure a clean sheet against the Chairboys. In terms of the overall form table, though, they really have picked up because they went 12 games without a win. And as Tom obviously said that there wasn't ever a feeling when their fans of, let's get rid of Flynn. It was more a case of, okay, trust the process here. It's going to take him time to get these 19 players bedding in, which seems to be the case now. They seem to be getting somewhere with that. They're now second in the last 6 games form table.
Yeah.
The record of 1-1, lost, drawn, 1-1. United 6. Now, interestingly, I've not changed that from like the last 2 or 3 things. We've been 6 in the form table consistently for a while now. Which is maybe not such a bad thing because the form's not dropping off. It's been very consistent. Our record obviously is 1-1, lost, 1 drawn. It's interesting to see what happens in this one. I mean, in terms of takeovers, obviously they've been taken over by some Americans, and they're obviously not in the FSG Glazers level of in terms of what they're worth, but they seem to be doing all the right things there by the sounds of things.
Yeah, by the sounds of things. I mean, you don't sign 19 players if you're skint, do you? But yeah, it'd be interesting to see how it goes, and if it goes badly, if they get bored, which sometimes happens.
As Tom was saying on the chat there, the big question they've all got is, well, why are you getting involved in this? Because you're an investment firm, so you obviously want to make something from it.
Yeah.
The only thing I can think of as well, it's a club right by the M6. There's quite a bit of land around there, right next to a motorway. That can be quite popular for people. But yeah, one of the problems they've got, obviously, as he said as well, is the fact that they don't own their ground and never have done in the 30 years that it's been in existence, basically. So I think one of the first aims is to try and buy that back and hopefully get the Saddlers Club open as well, so we can go for a pint in there, because it's been a while, hasn't it? Right, well, let's move on to United. In fact, no, let's talk a little bit about Mike Flynn, their manager. He's someone who, I was quite surprised he went there. I thought he might have gone to a League One club potentially, but sometimes I suppose you haven't got time to wait around for that chance, have you? And sometimes you have to take the opportunity when it comes up, don't you?
Yeah, and I think sometimes if you wait for a League One job, it's because someone's been sacked often. Yeah. And I think you'd rather go to Walsall with a bit of money to spend than be at a League One club that's struggling. Yeah.
Obviously, he came in before the money came in, I think, at Walsall, actually, when I think back. But he came into Walsall, the team that wasn't doing well, but wasn't massively struggling in that sense, because obviously I think Darrell Clark walked out on them, didn't he? I seem to remember. No, sorry, it was Matt Taylor, wasn't it? He left them this season. Darrell Clark was season before. Yes, it's kind of one of those ones, again, the fact that he was at his hometown club for so long, such a long association, sometimes, again, you can't take the risk of waiting for ages, can you? You've got to get out there and try something different. So fair play to him for taking that chance, and it looks like it's starting to turn around for them. So fair play. Let's talk about United then quickly, Mike, before we do our predictions. Mellish returned to suspension. I mean, we're 99% certain if he's fit, he's going to start this game, isn't he? I don't think there's much doubt about that. And he will make a big difference in terms of driving us forward as much as anything, which is incredible when you think he's a left-sided centre-back. Stretton also likely to be fit after his knock, but I'd imagine he'll probably be on the bench. Probably not fit enough to start. Any other changes you make?
Well, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because we could potentially have Edmondson and Dennis and Stretton all available. Yeah. I mean, for me, I think Edmondson should start. He's scored 2 goals in 2 games now, or 2 goals in 1.5 games, depending how you look at it. I mean, it depends sort of who's feeling a bit tired from Tuesday as well, still. Yeah.
Do you think Dennis looked a little bit rusty maybe against Harrogate? A few people I've seen saying that. I'm not so sure. I think he did okay. I think we were just so overrun in midfield. We just didn't get the ball to him often enough, I think.
Yeah, I think. But at the same time, he's played a lot of football in the past sort of few weeks. Yeah. So it would be understandable if he's a little bit tired. Yeah. But yeah, you said that you think that Stretton might be on the bench. I think he could well start. I don't know. We'll see.
I don't know if he wants to take the risk of starting him. I think he's similar to what he did against Stockport. Just put him on the bench, and then if you need to, you can bring him on, can't you? Other than that, do you bring Jordan Gibson back in, or do you stick with Taylor Charters for now?
It's a tough one, isn't it? I mean, Charters has been playing well, but Gibson, you know what he brings to the table, and it's one of them. Whichever one Simo goes for, I'm not really going to argue against it.
No, I mean Gibson. I have a feeling Gibson might come in. I don't know. I'm not 100%, but I feel like he might want to think, right, let's get back to our strongest 11. What I know is my strongest 11. And let's be fair, that's probably near enough our strongest 11, isn't it? Wouldn't it be? With Holy in goal, Feeney, Huntington, and Mellish centre-backs. Back and armour, wing-backs. Midfield of Moxon, Guy, and Gibson. And then up front, Edmondson and Dennis. I mean, the only argument is maybe Patrick over one of those two strikers. But other than that, that's pretty much your strongest 11, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. That's pretty good, to be honest.
Yep. Right. Okay, well, let's do some predictions then, Mike. You can go first. What do you want to go for?
I'll go for a 1-0 win with Paul Huntington. And I've said that a lot this season, and it hasn't happened yet. And that's probably why I'm bottom of the prediction league. But there you go.
Right. I'm going to go for a 2-1 win with goals from Edmondson again. And do I think Jack Stratton will come on and get one? John Mellish. Yeah, let's go for Edmondson and Mellish. Mellish coming back from suspension and getting the winner. Yeah, right. Let's do Dan's prediction then.
I'm going for a nice steady 2-0 win with goals from Ryan Edmondson and a Morgan Feeney header from a corner.
So me and Dan will be fighting out for who gets the second goal in the game, possibly in that one. But there you go. So yeah, no, that's just in terms of the table, in terms of the match predictions one that you do, Mike. Dan's still top, but it's very tight up there, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Mind the gap.
Yeah, so Dan's on 12, I'm on 11, and Mike still struggling down on 6. But you know,
we all got one goal scorer on Tuesday night.
Yeah.
So we all gained 1 point,
yeah, kind of
which was pointless, really.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly that. There you go. I should say, actually, I'm not actually going to the Walsall game this weekend. I mean, we were banging on about it, and I've not mentioned it yet, but I'm going to be in Berlin for the day. I'm going over to watch Hertha against Köln. So that should be quite a fun day out. I might even record a few bits and do a little special episode for you about what it's like to go and watch a Bundesliga game on the day. Treating it like we're going to Leyton Orient away for the day, which is quite crazy, but there you go. Right, X-Files section before I finish up, Mike. Fairly busy one because we've got 2 midweeks to cover because obviously we recorded very early on in the previous week. And a weekend, obviously. So first up, the previous midweek, James Tavernier. He scored from the spot in... is it James? Sorry, I keep saying Tavernier. James Tavernier, isn't it? I always get it wrong. James Tavernier scored from the spot in Rangers' 3-1 home defeat to Ajax in the Champions League, which gives them, I think, the worst ever group stage record in the Champions League.
Yeah, fair play to them.
Not good stuff for them, is it? Brad Potts, he scored the only goal in Preston's 1-0 home win over Swansea City. George Tanner was sent off for what you can only describe as a horror tackle in Bristol City's 1-0 home defeat to Sheffield United. It was not a good tackle, was it, this?
Yeah, John McGee thinks it was just a yellow.
Oh, John, you're getting some stick tonight. Bless you. Aaron Hayden just cannot stop scoring, as you'll find out again in a minute. He scored in Wrexham's 1-0 home win over Maidenhead United. Jack Bridge scored a penalty in Southend United's 3-0 win at Barnet. And Olufelo Olamola scored in Wealdstone's 1-0 win at Altrincham. On to the weekend, Liam Cooper. We don't mention him very often in terms of stuff like this, but he scored in Leeds United's dramatic 4-3 home win over Bournemouth. What a game this was. Incredible stuff. Mark Beck, he scored a brace for Darlington in their 2-1 win at Kidderminster Harriers. I think this puts them top of National League North, actually. Really flying well at Darlington at the moment. And here is a name we do not mention in goal scoring very often, isn't it? James Brown. I feel good, yeah. He scored for St Johnstone in their 2-1 win over Rangers. James Tavernier actually scored for Rangers in this game as well. Back into midweek, the current midweek that is, Regan Slater. He scored a quick-fire brace for Hull City as they came from behind to win 3-2 at Cardiff City. Andy Cook scored the winner for Bradford City as they beat his former club Mansfield Town 2-1. Is there a feeling that Bradford really rely quite heavily on Andy Cook?
It seems to be that way, doesn't it? Yeah.
If he picks up a knock, they might struggle to keep themselves up near the top, possibly. But there you go. Tristan Abrahams, he scored a penalty in Eastleigh's 5-2 win over Maidstone United. Kedwin Scott scored for Notts County, their 2-2 draw with Southend United. Aaron Hayden scored yet again for Wrexham in their 3-1 win at Scunthorpe United. I think he's got something like 9 goals in 18 games this season. He's got like
something like that, isn't
a
it?
goal scoring record of a striker basically this season, which is quite remarkable.
I was thinking about this before and thinking how Callum Guy, was he ever good at taking corners, or did we just have Aaron Hayden in the box for them and it made it look like he was really good at taking corners?
It could well have been. I'm just quickly getting his stats up here. Why is it not showing this? No, that's showing the wrong season. Let me see. Right, so Aaron Hayden's record this season, 19 appearances, 9 goals.
Fair play.
Wow. One of them was in the FA Cup, so if it's the league, in terms of the league, 9 goals and 18 appearances, which, let me have a quick look and see what that does in terms of top scorers in the National League. I wonder if he's right up. I imagine he'd be right up there, surely. He is currently joint 6th top scorer in the National League. Paul Mullen's right up there as top. Macaulay Longstaff, of course. I completely forgot that he'd been scoring for fun at that level. But yeah, Wrexham they've scored a ridiculous amount of goals this season already. So no real surprise that they're right up at the top of the National League. Just to finish off, Mark Ellis, he scored for Torquay United in their 3-3 draw with Dorking Wanderers. Take a point that takes them off the bottom of the National League. One of a little bit of news. I think this is one you spotted, Mike, isn't it? Adam Collin. He's stepped up from his head of youth goalkeeping at Mansfield Town to be just head of goalkeeping overall. So he's basically the main goalkeeping coach now, I think. So
yeah.
As you mentioned, he's been on the bench a few times this season, hasn't he? I think he's been registered as a player, similar to the way that Tony Craig was back in the day for us as well. So, yeah, good stuff for Adam there. And that's today's episode done, Mike. There you go. Taking a little bit of a while, but covered a fair bit there. We'll be back next week to do a preview of the Salford game. A game, again, that we're both going to, aren't we, I think? I think you're coming to that one,
yes.
Aren't you? So, should be a good one, that one. I'm hoping to get the Christian Dennis interview out early next week. Apologies for the delay on that one. It's just taking a little bit while to sort out. But yeah, and then we'll have another interview coming out not long after that as well with someone at the club. It'll be a very, very good one. That one. I'm really looking forward to that too. Mike, thanks very much for joining me. Always appreciated. Cheers. Thanks everyone for listening, and up the Blues.
Up the Blues.